The hand comes down on Raymond Okafor's shoulder before he can finish his coffee. "Sir, I need you to step outside with me." Raymond does not flinch. He sets the mug down carefully, both hands visible on the table, and looks up at the officer standing over him. Officer Craig Whitfield is 29 years old, thick through the chest, and wearing an expression that has already decided how this conversation ends. "Is there a problem, officer?" "We've had a complaint. Someone in this restaurant is uncomfortable with your presence." Raymond looks around the room. He has eaten at Delia's every Friday for 6 years. He knows the hostess by name. He knows the booth he is sitting in, second from the window, the one with the cracked vinyl on the left side that Delia keeps saying she'll get fixed. He has his usual short rib, collard greens, a slice of sweet potato pie waiting under a glass dome on the counter. His coffee is half full. "I'm having dinner," Raymond says. "I'd like to finish it." Whitfield's hand does not move from his shoulder. "Sir, I'm asking you to step outside voluntarily. If you'd prefer to do this another way, I can accommodate that." Raymond's jaw tightens. He breathes once. He puts his hands flat on the table where the officer can see them and does not raise his voice. He has been doing this his whole life, managing his own body in spaces where other people's fear becomes his responsibility to absorb. "I haven't broken any law," Raymond says. "I'm not going to step outside." Whitfield leans in. "You want to be difficult about this. I want to finish my dinner." A woman at the counter turns on her stool. A teenager 2 booths down has already raised her phone. The man at the cash register, that's Henry, Delia's husband, watches from behind the register without moving. The narrator steps in. He has no idea, because the black man sitting in that cracked vinyl booth, hands flat on the table, coffee going cold, is a decorated United States Navy Chief Petty Officer with 28 years of service. And his commanding Admiral is sitting at the very next table. She has been watching for the last 40 seconds. And in 7 minutes, Admiral Patricia Sims is going to stand up. When she does, everything in this room will change. Craig Whitfield doesn't know it yet. But this story doesn't start here. Rewind to the morning. Raymond Okafor woke at 5, the way he has woken at 5 every morning for 31 years, in the Navy and out of it. His apartment on the east side of the city is neat in the way that a certain kind of discipline becomes permanent. Shoes aligned, everything in its place. The framed photograph on the dresser facing the door, so it is the first thing he sees when he enters and the last thing he sees when he leaves. The photograph is from 2003. Raymond is 25 years old in it, standing on the deck of the US Theodore Roosevelt in dress whites, hand at his temple in salute. The person he is saluting is not in the frame. But Raymond knows who she is. He is known for 22 years. He made coffee. He read for an hour. He drove to the school where he has been principal for 4 years, Jefferson Middle School. 1,400 students, a staff of 91, a building that needed new windows and a functioning vac system when he arrived and has both now. Because Raymond Okafor does not accept conditions that cannot be changed. He spent Friday the way he always spends Friday, walking classrooms in the morning, meeting with his assistant principal after lunch, reviewing the week's incident reports in the late afternoon. At 4:30, he locked his office. He drove to Delia's. He sat in the second booth from the window. He ordered the short rib. Raymond Okafor served in the United States Navy from 1991 to 2019. He was stationed in the Persian Gulf during Desert Storm, in the Pacific during the Taiwan Strait Crisis of 1996, and in the North Atlantic during 3 separate deployments that he does not talk about in detail. He attained the rank of Master Chief Petty Officer, the highest enlisted rank in the Navy, and held that rank for 11 years. He has a Navy Commendation Medal with a Combat Distinguishing Device, a Meritorious Service Medal, a Navy Achievement Medal, and an award that required a security clearance to acknowledge publicly until 2021. He retired with full honors in San Diego on a Thursday afternoon, and his commanding officer stood on the dock and shook his hand and told the assembled crowd that Raymond Okafor was the finest enlisted man she had served alongside in 33 years of service. He drove away from that ceremony and did not tell anyone in this city who he had been, because he had not come here to be who he had been. He came to run a school. That is what he does. What Craig Whitfield sees when he walks into Delia's and receives a nudged complaint from a woman at the counter. A woman who does not know Raymond, who does not eat here on Fridays, who has decided something about the man in the second booth by looking at him for 90 seconds, is a large black man in a gray pullover, alone, taking up a booth on a Friday evening. Craig Whitfield has been with the City Police Department for 4 years. He has 1 civilian commendation for helping locate a missing child. He has 1 dismissed complaint, filed 14 months ago by a Mr. Donald Reeves, who reported that Whitfield had told him during a traffic stop to get back to your side of town. The complaint was reviewed by Sergeant Hal Brecker. Sergeant Brecker has worked with Whitfield's father for 12 years. The complaint was closed in 8 days. Whitfield believes he is doing his job. He is completely sincere in this belief. That is not a defense. It is a description of exactly how this kind of harm travels, not through exceptional malice, but through ordinary certainty, passed from one person to another, dismissed and enabled and handed forward. Back in the booth at Delia's, Raymond's hands are still flat on the table. Whitfield is still standing over him, and the hand has not left his shoulder, and the pressure has increased slightly, not dramatically, but enough for Raymond to feel the intention behind it. The teenager 2 booths down is filming. Raymond can see the phone in his peripheral vision. He notes it. He counts. An officer applying physical pressure without legal basis, that is the first violation. He files it the way he has filed things his whole professional life, without moving, without speaking, without giving anything away. Last time I'm asking, Whitfield says. Outside now you haven't given me a lawful reason. The reason is I'm telling you to. Second violation. Raymond breathes through it. That is not a lawful reason. Whitfield takes hold of his arm. Not a grab, not yet. A grip. The specific kind of grip that is designed to communicate what comes next, if the answer is wrong. At the next table, a woman with close-cropped gray hair and reading glasses set her menu down. She has been sitting there for 22 minutes. She came with 2 other people, a Navy captain named Edwin Morse and a commander named Diane Yee, for a quiet dinner to mark the end of her last week in this city before she reports to the Pentagon in 30 days. She chose Delia's because someone on her staff said the short rib was worth the drive. She was looking at the dessert menu when the officer walked in. She watched him receive the complaint. She watched him cross the room. She has been watching for 40 seconds. She knows Raymond Okafor's service record by heart. She reviewed it herself 4 times across their shared career. She knows the citation that required security clearance. She knows about the night in 2009 in the North Atlantic that produced that citation, because she gave the order that sent Raymond's team into the water. She knows what he did, and what it cost, and what he never said about it afterward. She does not move yet. She is watching. 22 minutes until the squad car arrives. 22 minutes for Whitfield to build the structure of his mistake, brick by brick. in front of a phone camera and two senior naval officers and Henry at the register, who has now picked up his own phone and is dialing his wife, who runs the city council's community liaison office, and has since stepped into the back hallway to speak quietly. Henry has eaten lunch with Raymond Okafor. He knows who sits in that booth on Friday evenings. He does not know what he is watching exactly, but he knows it is wrong, and his wife has the kind of contacts that convert knowledge of something wrong into a paper trail before morning. "On your feet," Whitfield says. The grip tightens. This is the third violation. Raymond rises slowly. He does not pull away. He does not flinch. He stands to his full height, 6'2", broad across the shoulders, the posture of a man who stood at attention for 28 years, and looks at Whitfield with a calm that is not passivity. It is the specific composure of a man who has been in situations where panic would cost lives, where the difference between staying controlled and losing control was measured in who came home and who did not. He turns that composure on Craig Whitfield now, and Whitfield, to his credit, registers something. He cannot name it, but it lands. "I'd like your badge number," Raymond says. Whitfield's chin lifts slightly. "You'll get whatever I decide to give you." Fourth violation. Raymond files it. The teenager's phone is steady, arm resting on the back of the booth, capturing the full width of the scene. The woman at the counter who filed the complaint has swiveled back toward her coffee and is looking at neither of them, which is its own kind of answer. A couple by the door has stopped eating. Henry has not come back from the hallway. At the next table, Captain Edwin Morse sets his water glass down. He is 6'4" and spent 8 years on surface warfare ships before his current posting. He starts to rise. The woman across from him puts one hand on his forearm. She does not press hard. She does not need to. He sits back. Admiral Patricia Sims is watching. She is watching the way she watches everything, with full attention and without expression, cataloging what she is seeing, building the picture from all its pieces at once. The grip, the badge number refusal, the posture of the woman at the counter who started this and cannot look at it now, the teenager's phone, Henry's absence. She is watching because she was trained to gather everything before she acts. She is watching because the moment she stands up, the situation changes, and she needs to see what the situation is before she changes it. She sees enough. Whitfield keys his radio. He is calling for a backup unit to assist with what he is characterizing to his dispatcher as a non-cooperative individual at a restaurant on 5th and Broward. He gives the address. He gives a physical description. He uses the institutional language that was designed for exactly this, precise enough to sound professional, loose enough to be applied to whoever needs applying it to. The machine protecting itself by describing the situation in terms that do not describe the situation. 17 minutes. Raymond stands beside the booth. He has not been charged with anything. He has not been told he is suspected of anything specific. He was eating dinner and someone looked at him and felt something, and that feeling was given a badge and a radio and a grip on Raymond's arm. That is the complete legal basis for what is happening right now, in this room, in front of 12 witnesses and one very steady phone. He counts violation 5, removal from a public accommodation without probable cause or legal authority. He adds the badge number refusal. He adds the unauthorized physical contact. The list is now 6 items long, and it is not finished. And he knows it is not finished, and he breathes through the knowledge the same way he has breathed through every uncomfortable truth in 28 years of service, without letting it change his face. He looks at his coffee going cold on the table. He looks at the sweet potato pie under the glass dome on the counter. He notes them both the way a man notes things he intends to return to. Whitfield is relaxed now. He has called for backup. The backup is coming. In his experience, and his experience has never taught him otherwise, this is the part where things resolve in his favor. The person either cooperates or the backup arrives, and the lack of cooperation becomes the story. Either way, he has done his job. He does not know that 7 feet behind him, a rear admiral in the United States Navy has folded her reading glasses, placed them in their case, and set them on the table beside her water glass. She buttons the top button of her blazer. She stands. She is 5'6". She has close-cropped gray hair and the bearing of someone who has stood on the bridge of a destroyer in a North Atlantic storm and given orders in a level voice. She is wearing civilian clothes, dark slacks, a navy blazer, no insignia, and she looks, to Craig Whitfield, like someone's grandmother who has decided to get involved. She steps around the end of her table and stands 2 feet from Whitfield. Officer, her voice is quiet. It does not need volume. Whitfield turns. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to step back. I don't think you will. She reaches into the inside pocket of her blazer and produces a card. She holds it up so Whitfield can read it without taking it from her hand. She gives him 3 seconds. My name is Patricia Sims. I am a Rear Admiral in the United States Navy. This man is a Master Chief Petty Officer with 28 years of service, a Navy Commendation Medal with combat device, and a classified citation that I authorized personally. She pauses. 1 beat. He served me. 3 words. That is all she says about it. Whitfield looks at the card. He looks at Raymond. He looks at the card again. His hand drops from Raymond's arm. Captain Morse has come around the table now. Commander Yi is standing. Neither of them says anything. They do not need to. The weight in the room has shifted, and Whitfield can feel it the way you feel weather changing, before you can name it, before you fully understand what is coming. Whitfield starts. Don't speak yet, Admiral Sims says. You're going to want to think very carefully about whatever you say next. She turns to Raymond. Raymond, that's all. Just his name. Raymond exhales. He looks at her for a moment. 22 years of service alongside this woman. The deck of the Theodore Roosevelt. The North Atlantic. The dock in San Diego. Admiral, he says. Sit down, she says. Finish your dinner. He sits down. He wraps both hands around his coffee mug. Admiral Sims turns back to Whitfield. Now, she says. Start from the beginning. I want to hear exactly what you were told, by whom, and what legal basis you relied on for every action you took in the last 9 minutes. She pulls a phone from her blazer pocket and sets it on the table between them. Screen up. Recording. Take your time. The squad car that Whitfield called arrived at Delia's 11 minutes later. The 2 officers who got out were a sergeant named Patricia Heron and her partner, Officer Davis. They walked in and took the room in one sweep. Whitfield at the center of it. The Admiral standing across from him. Captain Morse. Commander Yi, the teenager in the booth with the phone. Henry at the register. Sergeant Heron looked at the card on the table. She looked at Admiral Sims. She looked at Whitfield. She said, Craig, step outside. The conversation in the parking lot lasted 6 minutes. It was not recorded, but Henry's wife, who had returned from the hallway, was standing near the window and later described Heron's side of it as very quiet and very clear. Inside, Admiral Sims sat down across from Raymond in the booth. The sweet potato pie had been brought over by the waitress without being asked for. There were 2 forks on the plate. You were going to let him take you out, Sims said. I wasn't going to give him a reason, Raymond said. I never give them a reason. She was quiet for a moment. I know. They ate the pie. It was exactly as good as her staff member had promised. By the time they finished, Sergeant Heron had completed her field report, a copy of which she submitted that evening directly to the department's Professional Standards Bureau, bypassing the normal chain of review. In the accompanying note, she cited the presence of flag-level military witnesses and documented footage. She noted, specifically, that Whitfield had initiated physical contact without legal basis and had removed a patron from a public accommodation in response to an unverified third-party complaint with no stated legal predicate. Heron's note also stated that she recognized the name Donald Reeves from the dismissed complaint 14 months prior, and that she believed a pattern review was warranted. She had been thinking about filing that note for 14 months. She filed it at 10:47 that evening from her kitchen table. Craig Whitfield was placed on administrative leave 8 days after the incident at Delia's. His case was reviewed not by Sergeant Brecker, who recused himself after Admiral Sims submitted a written account of the evening to the department's commanding officer, the city attorney, and the congressman who sits on the House Armed Services Committee, but by an external review panel convened in 11 days. The panel reviewed the teenager's footage, Sergeant Heron's field report, Admiral Sims's written account, Captain Morse's corroborating statement, and the dismissed complaint filed by Donald Reeves. Whitfield was terminated 31 days after the incident. He appealed. The appeal board took 9 days. The appeal was denied. His badge was surrendered on a Monday morning. Sergeant Brecker was transferred to an administrative desk role, pending a review of his complaint-handling conduct over the previous 3 years. That review is ongoing. The woman at the counter who filed the original complaint was not named publicly. She left Delia's before the squad car arrived and has not returned. What she said to Whitfield at the counter was captured partially in the teenager's footage, and the relevant seconds have been viewed, at last count, 640,000 times. Donald Reeves, who filed the original complaint 14 months earlier, was contacted by the city attorney's office. He submitted a new statement. His original complaint has been formally reopened. He said to the reporter who reached him that he had not expected anything to happen and had almost not called. Raymond Okafor did not give interviews. He issued one statement through the school district's communications office, which said, "I am grateful for the courage of the witnesses in that room. I am especially grateful for Sergeant Heron's decision to do what was right. I am a school principal in this city and the father figure for 1,400 children who watch how the adults around them respond when something wrong happens in front of them. I hope this story serves them." He did not mention the Admiral in the statement. He did not need to. She had been mentioned enough. Admiral Patricia Sims gave one interview to a naval affairs publication, in which she was asked why she intervened. She said, "Because I was there and I knew what I was looking at. Any officer in that room would have done the same." She was then asked if she believed that. She paused for a long time. "No," she said. "I don't." That's the problem. She reported to the Pentagon 26 days later on schedule. Sergeant Heron received a commendation from the department's Professional Standards Bureau 4 months after the incident. She accepted it quietly. She has not spoken publicly about the evening at Delia's. She said one thing to her partner Davis on the drive home that night, which Davis repeated to the reporter from the city paper. "I should have filed that note 14 months ago. That's on me too." The teenager who filmed the video, his name is Marcus Webb. He is 16. He attends Jefferson Middle School and has Principal Okafor for homeroom on Thursdays, uploaded the footage from the parking lot of Delia's before he finished his dinner. He did not know who Principal Okafor was outside of school. He filmed because he had been told, somewhere along the way, that documentation is how things change. He filed the footage and went back inside and finished his food. Raymond Okafor saw Marcus in the hallway on Monday morning. He stopped. He looked at him for a moment. He said, "Thank you." Marcus nodded. He said, "You okay, Mr. Okafor?" Raymond said he was. He went to his office and closed the door and sat at his desk for a little while before the day started. On his desk, next to his coffee mug, is a card. It reads, "Radm Patricia Sims, United States Navy." She left it on the table at Delia's when she stood to go. Raymond picked it up after she left. He has not called her. He doesn't think he needs to. She knows where to find him. He eats at Delia's every Friday. He sits in the second booth from the window, the one with the cracked vinyl on the left side. He orders the short rib. He drinks his coffee. He is there because he is part of this city and this neighborhood and this room, and no one's discomfort with that fact changes it. He has not left early once. Someone has to stay in the room. Think about Marcus Webb, 16 years old, sitting in a booth at Delia's on a Friday, watching something wrong happen 6 feet away. He could have looked at his phone for a different reason. He could have looked away. He didn't. And think about Sergeant Heron at her kitchen table at 10:47 at night, filing a note she'd been holding for 14 months. She didn't have an Admiral standing over her. She just finally decided that the note was more important than the peace of not filing it. This is what accountability actually looks like. Not one dramatic moment. 14 months of a note. A 16-year-old steady phone. A woman who was already planning to leave this city in 30 days but stood up anyway. Drop a comment below. Was there a moment when you stayed in the room, or when you didn't, and you've been thinking about it since? Because that question sits with all of us. Subscribe for more stories that show what it costs to do the right thing and what it costs when we don't. Because the footage is still out there. The complaints are still on file. And someone always has to decide to stay in the room.